With that, I am so thrilled to turn things over to our first case study presenter, Kim Lundgren, who's the CEO of Kim Lundgren Associates, or KLA. And KLA is a woman-owned benefit corporation that delivers solutions to create sustainable communities by addressing climate change. Kim has more than 20 years of professional experience working with local governments to design, secure funding for, implement, and evaluate sustainability plans and programs focused on adaptation and mitigation. As an early municipal sustainability pioneer, Kim developed the first climate action plan in Massachusetts and one of the first municipal climate adaptation plans in the country. As an experienced facilitator and strategist, Kim promotes a comprehensive approach to sustainability planning that encourages equitable stakeholder engagement and the tracking of key sustainability indicators. We're so thrilled to have you with us today, Kim. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will take over the screen. If I get a thumbs up that we're good. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Rachel, and everyone for joining today. I am really going to keep it to 10 minutes, I promise. I love this topic, I love this work, and I could talk about it forever. Rachel already gave you the little synopsis of me. Here's some quick bullets, and I know you're going to get these slides. So some slides I'm going to talk really fast through, or I may skip one or two just to keep to time for your full training today, but you'll get the slides so you can look back at them. I think the biggest thing to know about me as it relates to work in this field is I started so long ago that, and some of you may recall, you couldn't talk about climate adaptation in the early 2000s. That meant you gave up on the good fight, that we weren't going to reduce the emissions to the levels we needed to. In fact, you'd get yelled at by some folks. Fortunately or unfortunately, we are now able to, because of course we're seeing the impacts sadly every day, everywhere. And back then there really weren't a lot of impacts to show. You know, a lot of folks are very visual and they have to experience things themselves. And so without seeing it, it was hard to get folks on board. Now we don't have that problem. So KLA was created about 7 years ago. You heard about who I am. This is what KLA is all about and what I'm all about. It's about taking action. It's about doing it in the right way and making sure we're having an impact. I'm going to talk to you today a case study about a project we're doing in Clark County, Nevada. It is the All in Clark County initiative, and it is their effort to address climate change and create a more resilient and sustainable future for everybody. And everybody there right now is about 2.5 million. They're expecting another 600 or so thousand in the next 15 years. And then they also have 40 million visitors every year to the Las Vegas area. So this is a lot of folks we're having an opportunity to impact. I'm going to look at 3 specific principles as it relates to the Living Guide: address the root causes of climate change, collaborate, and communication and engagement best practices. In some respects, you'll see some of these just start flowing together, which I think is great. You want these principles to be living and coordinated and integrated. And so this is where I will focus my attention today. It is no surprise for any of you that know me, I think, that I would want to highlight this particular principle, addressing the root causes of climate change. It is really important to me that we not forget about reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I know that in my 20 years doing this, you know, the folks coming out of grad school, all excited about doing the greenhouse gas inventories, you know, 10, 15 years ago. And now it's really hard to find anybody who knows how to do it. So my team does, which is great. And if folks want to learn it, please let us know. But this is a very important benchmark for us. We can only adapt so far, right? And part of being resilient is both preparing for the impacts, but also reducing our need to constantly adapt. So I am definitely a person who's excited to talk about this principle. In Clark County, this is, and really in most of our large projects, this is how we look at things. We think about where are we standing right now, both from an emission standpoint and from our current hazards, the climate hazards that we're experiencing, and then where are we going? How are we projecting our emissions based on growth factors, based on policies at the state, federal levels, and what are the projections for the best science showing us that the climate hazards and the impacts are going to look like? Those really become the foundation of a planning process. So with All in Clark County, All in is the overall initiative, and as part of it, we've got these 3 very specific projects. The greenhouse gas inventory is completed. The climate vulnerability assessment is almost done. It's not public yet, so I can't share all of it, but we have been looking at the key items there, and another ASAP partner, Adaptation International, has worked with us on that. And then we are in the process of developing the Community Sustainability and Climate Action Plan. One thing to note, the very first thing we did with All In was actually a government operations sustainability and climate action plan. And that was because the county is very much looking to lead by example. So here's some data, and I like to show this. You're also going to see for a lot of my slides are very much tied into our communication engagement best practices. We know it's really important to reach out beyond the audience of folks that are professionals trained in this space. And I'll talk a lot more about that in communications and engagement. But ultimately, these are the emissions. Like most communities, we're looking at our buildings, we're looking at transportation. What are the opportunities to become more efficient, to change to renewable energy, electrification, things like that. This is a real core meat of how we're looking at developing the goals, strategies, and actions for the plan. Same thing with the climate assessment. Again, we like to use very simple terms for folks to understand what we're talking about here. In the 20 years since I've been working on climate change at the local level, it's been amazing how many more folks are doing the work and are engaged in it and are getting more and more education on it. In some cases, I think we've gotten too smart and we're losing some people along the way. And I'll definitely talk more about that in communication. It's important that we're bringing things down to everyone's level so that they can understand. So for example, a lot of folks think drought is related to high temperatures and not actually thinking about the fact, well, yes, but it's less precipitation is really where the problem lies. And of course, for Clark County, Las Vegas is the fastest warming city in the country. Clark County itself, the entire Clark County area, which I will share how large that is in a second, has been in 100% extreme drought for some time. So they are definitely familiar with some of the climate hazards and the associated impacts. So the way we do it, as I was mentioning, is it's very much a community driven. We love having our equitable engagement efforts. It's community driven, but it's guided by the data. It used to be that everything would just be open and we go to the community. Well, what do you think we should do? Well, a lot of folks don't know what we're supposed to do. That's what the consultants are for. That's what the science and the data is for. So we're very much use our data from our climate vulnerability assessment, from our greenhouse gas inventory to create a structure or an area within which now we have to figure out with the community and with our key stakeholders, how do we make this work for Clark County or for San Antonio, Indianapolis, wherever we're working? How do we make it work in this community, knowing that, you know, the data that we have is showing, you know, for this area, heat is going to potentially get to a point where they may lose some economy drives from the tourists and whatnot. So ensuring that we're integrating those things, and we really do talk about them together. We always talk about the emissions with the hazards and the impacts so that they move forward. Okay, I'm already taking too long. Okay, collaborate. Jumping on to collaborate. Clark County, Nevada, this is a picture of it. It's literally the entire bottom of Nevada. Over 8,000 square miles. It's the 14th largest county in the US, 2.5 million people, 3/4 of the state population resides here. When we kicked off this process, there were some relationships with existing municipalities, with the indigenous communities, the regional agencies, state and federal agencies, but they were a little bit fractured. It wasn't a real comprehensive effort. There has been an organization that was sort of driving regional activity around climate about 5 to 8 years ago. It really hasn't stayed consistent. So as part of this process, we had to prioritize collaboration. I will say when you're trying to do that in a project like this, you've got to give yourself the time to do it. A lot of time clients say, well, we want to get this plan done in a year. If you don't have strong relationships with key folks that you need to be at the table, that might not be possible. So it's really important. And these were all the folks that we had reached out to. We reached out to over 90 different organizations to participate in the advisory group. We went through an entire stakeholder mapping exercise and understanding like who needs to be part of what and in what way. There are some folks that we want part of the advisory group because they're technical experts. There are some folks that are just political experts that need to know how things run in their municipality. And then we have our advocates that are pushing for, water conservation or more opportunities for ensure affordable housing, things like that. And so we really cast a wide net. And again, that takes time to pull folks in and really start building relationships. I feel like this could go in either area, but collaboration, it also kind of merges into your broader engagement. So your advisory group and folks who are guiding the planning processes and will be implementing, but then you have reaching out to the community. And this is something that'll flow into the next piece is, you know, the goals for all in Clark County are very much, yes, of course, we want a diverse audience and voices heard in the plan, but in order to do that, we first have to build climate literacy and develop local capacity to really understand what climate change is and how it affects them. So we work with equity partners, community-based organizations representing target audiences. We give them 3 different roles that they could play, and of course, they always get paid for those roles. Same with our climate ambassadors. I love our climate ambassadors in Clark County. They are so excited. They get paid a living wage. They participate at events. Hopefully we'll get more and more now with mask mandates gone. But ultimately, we're not just having them engage folks in the planning process. They're getting trained. They're getting trained on how to engage people, understanding the planning process, climate 101, communications training. It really is a full effort. Okay, best practices in communications and engagement. Rachel talked about some of this, and I actually noted it because I was like, I'm so glad she said this. Language gaps and things of that sort. Some of these are so basic. Know your audience. This is the slide for you to look at later. You really need to know your audience. And 99% of the time, it's not you. It's not you. It's not someone with your level of expertise in this space. So we have to work to understand where are the people starting from so that we can engage them in this dialogue and help them understand. And a lot of times for us in a planning process, as I noted, we don't have a lot of time to do that. So we often do work with community-based organizations to understand from them where the priorities are. This was just Clark County leading by example. This is their county operations dashboard. I can include a link to this for folks that want to check it out. But the idea is that we're showing folks things in a way that is more graphically pleasing to folks who don't understand the technical data, who don't want to look at Excel spreadsheets. Having things in multiple languages. I am a huge fact sheet lover. 1-pagers, but it's front and back, so it's technically 2, but you've got to be concise and get your information into 2 pages, multiple languages. Also, remember that on average, the US Americans kind of read at an 8th grade level. So we really need to break things down. We write everything at a 6th grade level. Best way to do that, I like to go to the EPA or the DOE kids sites. That's a great place to start if you don't know. I also have a neighbor who's a 5th grade teacher. I ask her. I have an 11-year-old. I ask her. Use your resources that you have, but be creative and fun with your infographics and how you're engaging folks. We're doing a lot of, now we're moving back into in-person. We also have virtual forums. I'm not going to go much further, but engage with people in ways that resonate with them. Storytelling, story maps. I love testimonies. We love videos. Community days, people don't want to come to an event on climate change. That's just that. Let's just all accept that and say, let's talk about our community and let's get together. And then once we get them there, we can talk about climate change. Quick last thing on websites and reader accessibility. This is really important. Understanding when you want to have images, and you have to look at the website accessibility, ADA compliance, color contrasts are always something to think about in your communications. Okay. Yeah, I went over, but that was pretty good for me.
It was great, Kim. Very comprehensive, awesome examples. And like Kim said, we're going to be distributing the slide deck, so you can always review that. And we are recording this presentation, so you can review that, you know, on 3/4 speed if that's what you want to do. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kim.